Good morning. Perhaps you're wondering why I'm wearing this rose this morning. Actually, uh, this was from Noticon, okay? All the presenters got like a little gift bag. Oh, the bags are really cool too, with universal hexagrams and stuff on. But anyway, there was this beautiful gold box with a little window in it, and it had a black rose. Okay, it's an artificial rose, and a couple little pins there to encourage you to put it on your suit, probably meant for the big banquet night. But it also has an eyeball, has an eyeball in it. So I guess that's one of the perks of being a presenter at Noticon. So I thought I would, before I put it away in my permanent treasure box of mementos, I thought I'd share it with you. Anyway, uh, I'm going to talk briefly today. You know, I'm always talking about uh, Kabbalah and tarot in terms of the structure of both of those uh, things being illustrative of working model, a miniature working model of the cosmos. And I referred to the Temple of Solomon. And the idea behind the Temple of Solomon was to make a replica in dimension and construction of the universe. Okay. And if the model is correct enough, it will vibrate in sympathy with the large structure. Okay, and I use the example of a tuning fork. If the big vibratory word or whatever the big vibratory word you would like to picture as being the vibration that holds existence together, that creates existence, holds it together, that uh, it was a note from a tuning fork, a giant tuning fork, the tuning fork of God. Uh, that if you made a good enough, an accurate enough little tuning fork, that it would vibrate in sympathy with the big tuning fork. Doesn't that make sense? So the whole idea of any kind of spiritual practice that aims toward the devotee or the individual's enlightenment, awakening to Godhead, is simply techniques to turn yourself into a more and more accurate tiny tuning fork. So we've already got our tuning forks. We already are the tuning fork, but we got a lot of shit and rust and gunk and waxy buildup and bad patina wrapped around our little tuning forks. And every magical practice or every mystical practice, theoretically, everybody's religious anything is an attempt to knock the shit off of your tuning fork. And you can attach all sorts of, parochial doodads to it. Call it Jewish, call it Hebrew, call it Islamic, call it Sufi, call it Buddhist, call it Zen, call it anything you want. All it's trying to do is knock the shit off of your tuning fork. Well, Dr. John Dee, or I don't know if he's really a doctor, John Dee, like one of the smartest guys in the world at a time, a scientist, a mathematician, and a brilliant guy. They knew from the time he was a kid that this guy was something else. And but he was looking for, in his own scientific, 30 years ago, we would say, in his left hemisphere attempts to wrap his meat brain around what was the big tuning fork and how he could make a little tuning fork that would literally crack that code. He tried all sorts of stuff. Now, the stuff that he did sort of later in his career with Edward Kelly has given us the Enochian system of magic that we deal with. And actually, he only gave us the beginning of it. It was the Golden Dawn folks that gave us, more or less, put it into a workable system. And then Aleister Crowley took that ball and just ran with it. But Dee, with his analytic mind, saw the universe, or imagined the universe, his universe, as a giant code that he could crack. I mean, he amused himself, like when you play solitaire at work or something on your commute. He amused himself with cracking codes. He was a code cracker. He got a job as a spy for Elizabeth I because he's a code cracker. But even before he started getting into the Enochian phase of his life, and there were several layers of that, even before he started to do that, he got a hold of a document called the Book of Soyga, Soyga. And I'm just going to talk just very briefly about that. When during the very earliest operations with Enochian operations with Kelly, and Kelly brought down an angel who was answering questions. Okay. Now you can argue whether it was Kelly answering the questions, but so what? Okay. On March 10th, 1582, Dee and Kelly were talking to the Archangel Uriel. How's that for a start of a book? And Dee asked Uriel, "Is my book of Soyga of any excellency?" He was already playing with this thing called the Book of Soyga. Now, we have to ask ourselves, would Dee be in the place that he was when he asked that question about the Book of Soyga? Would Uriel have actually been in that room Has Dee's life gotten to the point of where he met Kelly and got Kelly and Uriel in the same freaking room with him? Would that have even happened had not, in the recent past, Dee been fucking around with the Book of Soyga? It's like asking me, what has magic ever done for you, Lon? You know, you don't have any money. You drive an old car. You don't own a house. You're at the mercy of landlords, and you never win the lottery. What good does your magic do? You know? Well, all of that's true. All of that's true, but you don't have a clue of what a big bum I would be or what I'm capable of being, the hideousness that I am capable of being. I'd say I'm pretty damn lucky. Okay, so maybe I haven't won the lottery, okay, but I'm still here living and breathing and having a pretty damn good time at 77. Would all of that, would I be this way had I not mindlessly performed a bunch of pentagram rituals in my in my youth? But I'm digressing. Um, he asked, "Is my book of Soyga of any excellency?" And Uriel answered, "That book was revealed to Adam in paradise by God's good angels." Okay, now if Uriel would have said that to me, uh, I don't think Uriel would say that to me, okay, because he was going to have to deliver that same message in different words and different concepts, because what Adam was in Dee's mind, what paradise was in Dee's mind, is much different than it is in mine. But when we're looking at Dee's diaries, we're putting ourselves in Dee's place. So, that book was revealed to Adam in paradise by God's good angels. And then Dee answered, "Oh, my great and long desire hath been to be able to read those tables of Soyga." Now, this is before all of the Enochian tables were channeled by Dee or any. This is at the very beginning. But Dee is telling the angels, I want the light bulb to go off in my head by playing with squares and tables and shit. That's my style. Okay. Oh, my great and long desire hath been to be able to read those tables of Soyga. I'm going to just talk briefly about what those tables of Soyga are. And I'm reading from DuQuette, chapter 5, from Enochian Vision Magic. Even before Dee met Kelly, he was immersed in the study of a magical treatise written in Latin called Aldaria Siv Soyga Tractatus Astrologico Magicus, or more simply, the Book of Soyga. We know that Dee was intrigued by the Book of Soyga because his diary records that it was the subject of one of the very first questions he asked the Archangel Uriel during Edward Kelly's inaugural scrying session on March 10th, 1582. This is the first time they dialed up the angels. That's the first question he asked. In later diary entries, he laments that he has misplaced his Book of Soyga, and still later entries indicate that he eventually found it. The book is an anonymous late medieval grimoire of planetary, angelic, and demonic magic. That is, in many ways, not too dissimilar to magical treatises of the period. However, there are several things that distinguish Soyga, things that obviously made it particularly attractive to Dee. For one thing, a great deal of the text concerns itself with alphanumeric exercises and puzzles, letters with numerical, astrological, and elemental values, which are combined, recombined, and reduced to form magic words, spelled forwards and backwards, all of which contain increasingly complex values and magical virtues. As we will see, this magical letter distillation process is characteristic of Enochian magic. So, Dee's almost saying, and this is the process by which I will be able to figure things out. This is the format. This is my modus operandi. Okay. Now, if he'd have been a musician, and there's no indication that he wasn't, but if he'd have been a musician, maybe his desire to trigger his own enlightenment would come through music, melodies, meter. Okay, if he would have been a plumber or a mason, even, give it to me in architectural terms. Okay, but he wasn't. He was a mathematician. This is what engaged his mind, and with his mind engaged in a process like this, he was going to crack the code of existence. Perhaps most intriguing to Dee was the last 18 leaves of Soyga. These pages contained 36 tables, each comprising a grid of 1,296 squares, arranged in 36 by 36 grids. Okay. Look at it this way. 36 by 36. And then 36 of those. So when you lay those 36 pages one on top of each other, they form a cube 36 by 36 by 36 of alpha numeric squares. Together, the tables would form a cube composing 46,656 squares. Each of the 36 tables is identified by an astrological or elemental symbol. The first 24 are attributed in pairs to signs of the zodiac, the next 7 to planets, the next 4 to elements: fire, water, air, and earth, and 1 simply to magistry. For our purpose, I impress upon the reader's mind the profound importance of alphanumerics and how much information can be encoded within a grid of a magic table. I'll try to demonstrate this with a simple illustration, and I've got now that's a simple illustration. I got a bigger one here I'm going to show you. Okay. I made it a little bit bigger there. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's the numeric. And I just arbitrarily went A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. There's the alpha. And I just put one other attribute in there, and I just sort of arbitrarily, put Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, uh, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Luna. Okay, and it's just coincidental that the letters sort of line up with the Sephiron, the tree of life. This is just arbitrary. I'm just doing this for illustration. The table is made up of 9 squares. Each square contains one of 9 letters, and these letters can be considered by themselves or in combination with others to spell magic words. And the individual letter has many additional or traditional meanings attached to it. To keep things simple, I've arbitrarily assigned just 2 correspondences, numerical and planetary, to each of the letters. These are shown in the corners of each of the little squares there. Theoretically, the number of correspondences in each square can represent, theoretically, the number of correspondences each square can represent is nearly infinite. For example, in this square, in this particular table, C not only represents the letter C, but the number 3, and all things 3-ish. Right there, we open the door to an perhaps infinite number of correspondences. All things 3-ish. What do I mean by 3-ish? One very big example is all things in the universe that exist in time and have movement, and all things that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. In this example, C also represents Saturn and everything Saturnian, from wisdom and restriction to darkness, old age, and lead. Like DNA, alphanumeric squares carry an unimaginably vast amount of information in a deceptively small package. As a resident of our 3x3 table, the C square also carries information drawn from its position relative to the other letters and their correspondences. Can you begin to see how much information is contained in that one little square alone? Imagine then the mass of complex data that could be tightly stored in a 36 by 36 square cube represented by the Book of Soyga. Can you see how this concept excited D? I've discovered no evidence of a direct connection between the Book of Soyga and any of the magical workings that led ultimately to the reception of Enochian magic. Nevertheless, the fact remains that even before D met Kelly, the mechanics of alphanumeric cipher system as presented in Soyga captured D's analytical imagination and had become part of the way he expected to receive divine information. Indeed, at every phase of D and Kelly's workings, alphanumeric squares and codes would play a major role. We know D held the Book of Soyga in high regard and was particularly preoccupied with learning the secrets of the 36 tables. The magical process of the Book of Soyga, shuffling and distilling immense numbers of letters and squares into smaller and smaller bits of concentrated information, would become the modus operandi by which the spirits would ultimately communicate the secrets of Enochian magic to Dee and Kelly. It would be the method by which they received the holy table, the lamen, the ensigns of creation, the sigillum diameth, the table of Nalvage, the elemental tablets, and most dramatically, the angelic language and the 48 calls. In this way, in a way, this process is a metaphor for the mechanics of creation itself. As Carl Sagan said, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first create the universe. In this case, our apple pie is the manifest universe, the world, as it presently exists. The world Dee and Kelly wish to understand and magically affect. Dee wanted to understand the world for political reasons, even. This world is the end product of a progression of cosmic events that physicists believe began with an immensely dense singularity, containing all potential information that would eventually become the universe. That burst open and set into motion the phases of creation. The immensely packed assembly of 36 by 36 alphanumeric squares found in the Book of Soyga is a crude but appropriate model for such a singularity. See all the potential goodies wrapped up in that packed little cube. The intricate process of combining, shuffling, and distilling information-packed squares magically mimics the astronomical processes by which atoms and elements to stars and planets were formed in the creation cycle from seemingly chaotic units of a potential universe. The Book of Soyga did not play a direct role in the magical operations of Dee and Kelly, but the patterns and formulae it embodied would remain the methodology of their angelic communications until the end of their association. I believe that the two magicians, by taking part in this incremental process of creation, became personally attuned to the magical universe as it presently exists, and thus prepared themselves to receive and engage in Enochian magic. In the chapters that follow, I'll present only the briefest snapshots of the step-by-step process I believe was the attunement program that prepared Dee and Kelly to receive this and to receive the Enochian magic system. Hopefully, by your participation in the process, you will also undergo, howbeit vicariously, a similar transformational experience and become fully prepared to actually practice Enochian vision magic. Okay. And that same attunement process that I'm talking about there in order to prepare for Enochian magic is what I also tried to do, present a program of attunement to the dynamics that are the fundamentals of the structure of the tarot in the book, The Tarot Architect. I plugged 2 books, 2 in one day. Now I'll give you a break. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.